Indeed cutting it this year, shows that well-run councils, good councils, can deliver more for less.
Here in Conservative-run Barnet, one of two councils going for a cut, the local authority has made national headlines for its so-called One Barnet programme, sometimes called the largest outsourcing project ever seen in local government. Back office functions like IT and the phone system are now operated by a private company called Capita. On top of that, jobs like repaving the street are done by a private company called Re, half owned by Capita and half by the council. The idea is that that new company would then sell services around the country to whoever wanted to buy them. If money was made, Barnet would then split the profits with Capita. As of yet, though, they haven't found any buyers. But the council's already making money from this site at Millbrook Park. When it's finished, there'll be over 2,000 new homes here, a joint venture between the council and two private companies. Now, if this doesn't look like council housing, that might be because it's not council housing. In fact, it's just private property developed by the council, sold to private buyers, and the aim is to make the local authority money. But elsewhere in the borough, the council's efforts to raise money are accused of causing real distress. This is Janet Leifer. Her husband died last year.
We had probably been together more than 30 years. I suppose we'd been married more than 30 years, and then in his early 60s he developed dementia.
At first, Barnet Council paid for his daycare.
I think the trips to the day centre were very important, both for him and for myself, because it gave him an opportunity to mix with other people. And for me, it was an opportunity for respite, which was and to know that he was safe.
But after the council introduced means testing, Janet had to pay £37 a day.
I probably felt the stress of it more because I was the one who was dealing with the finances and with the bills coming in. So, yes, I found it very, very stressful, very worrying. It was another issue to deal with in what was becoming quite a difficult situation to where you couldn't really manage. It was out of control, really, in a way.
They would have lost something like £20 million because they froze council tax.
An election debate organised by the Barnet Alliance for Public Services earlier this week. The council's cuts to services and to council tax were high on the agenda.
I believe it's simply an election gimmick, and it's going to be a very expensive gimmick for the residents of Barnet because it's unsustainable. You can't cut the council tax and maintain services.
UKIP, however, were not invited.
Oh, be quiet.
They still turned up.
Sir, you would have been welcome to stay if you'd obeyed the rules of the meeting you have.
But one politician who was invited and declined the opportunity to make a case for his council tax cut was the Conservative leader of the council, Richard Cornelius.
Not there, but he is here. Richard Cornelius, leader of the Conservative Council Barnet. Welcome to you. A gimmick, it was described as there. I mean, how much is this? You plan to bring the council tax down next year?
We're going to bring it down by 1%.
How much is that, though?
About £1.5 million.
How much is it for everyone, kind of weekly?
It's a small.
How much?
No, it's a small amount. It's £21 for an average council taxpayer in a year.
£21 a year.
It's a
so
small
what's
amount.
That in it? I mean,
it's a gesture. We've been working hard. We've managed to cut the cost of running the council, and everyone should share in that. And it's right to give the council taxpayer something back.
You accept it's a gesture, really?
It's a gesture, but it shows a direction of travel. It shows our aspiration. That's what we want to do.
And what about when we see Janet Leifer's case there, and seeing that something she was used to getting, and others perhaps like her were used to getting. You introduce that means testing, and then she's paying that a day.
Well, that's very difficult, and I understand how she perceives that. However, it is important that we're fair in what we do with adult social services, that we are even-handed, and that people who can contribute do contribute, and that's what's happened in this case.
Do you think that's proved popular?
I think it has proved popular. I think there's a wide recognition that the welfare system needs radical reform, and it is happening both nationally and locally. It has to be seen to be fair. It's unsustainable if it's unfair.
Of course, in that case, there was also the added complication. He's suffering from dementia, she's taking over these affairs. You're suddenly slapping a kind of £37, £40 daily charge on. I mean, it's a bit of a shock, isn't it?
Well, it wasn't a shock. It was well flagged up, and she was treated very kindly, and her care is actually her husband's care was provided by a charity. It was an outsourced arrangement, and the perception was that, or our perception was, that she could afford to pay, and so she should, whereas there are many unfortunate people who need help more.
Is it, when you talk about a gesture, is it very important to provide a gesture such as this because it is an election year, i.e. is it a gimmick? Do you need to persuade people after uncertainty about your transformation to One Barnet and all this outsourcing that you mean business?
Well, when Eric Pickles told us we had to cut our spending by 33%, that's pretty frightening and frankly unbelievable that we could do it. But we have achieved that.
You don't think that's fair that he did that, really, do you?
Well, with hindsight, of course it was fair because we've been able to do it. I mean, unfortunately, we've proved his case completely, and we've managed to do it, and most other boroughs have done it, so it shows that it could be done. And now we're faced with the situation that it is right to give something back to the taxpayer because we can, to show the gesture, to show that at heart we are a tax-cutting party and a tax-cutting
Jeremy Corbyn, would you agree that across London it just shows what's possible now?
No, it doesn't. What it shows is that Barnet has spent £80 million preparing to outsource all its services to a series of private contractors. It loses democratic control over them. It's damaging for the very poorest and most vulnerable people in the borough. And their housing strategy is all about building houses for sale when there's a desperate housing need for houses for rent across the capital. This is a model of local government which makes EasyJet and Ryanair look comfortable and efficient. This is an awful proposal that's put forward by Barnet, and it is not very popular with a lot of people in Barnet, and I can't understand why you can't go to a public meeting to defend it.
Let him deal with that.
Let me deal with it. It hasn't cost 80 million to do this. We spent 80 million, but that's providing services as well.
80 million preparing to sell it.
That is not true. That is not true. And it's not a sale. It is an outsourcing. It is a contract. We're paying someone to do something that we were, frankly, less able to do efficiently. We've now outsourced the back office function. Well, frankly, that's an obvious thing to do, a no-brainer.
Greg Hands, do you claim that councils, all these councils, are freezing their council tax because they can? It'll have no impact on services. It's fine. The financial climate's not too tough for them.
First of all, I agree with Richard. I mean, I think Barnet Council is doing a very, very good job. The other council that's cutting its council tax this year is my own council.
Fine, but on that point, do you agree? Because there are a lot of them that are going to be freezing the council.
Well, Tim, the point is that you can cut council tax and deliver better services. In Hammersmith and Fulham, council tax is down 20% in the last 7 years since the Conservatives have taken over. In that time, we have produced cleaner streets. We have halved the council's debt.
About the wider principle.
We have just
got a wider principle, not about your own constituency in this instance, because we haven't heard in the film, and we haven't heard from you, we haven't heard from Richard Cornelius here. One of the reasons why most of the boroughs have no choice or are taking this option to freeze is because they've been offered this grant. Some people will call it a bribe, this freeze grant, isn't it? I mean, local authorities wouldn't do it otherwise, would they?
I think it's perfectly possible to try and reverse what happened under Labour, where council tax doubled under Labour in those Labour years. We recognise that council tax is something that we need to keep down as a government, and well-run Conservative councils are delivering
just
that
one council
locally.
here can do it.
And
there are a number of councils that won't be able to.
The point is, Tim, it's perfectly possible to deliver better services with less tax take, and that is shown by both Barnet, Hammersmith and Fulham and other Conservative councils. That is the point.
My council has taken a lot of services back in-house because it's cheaper, because we're not paying the profits of the outsourcing companies. Secondly, what's the effect been in Barnet and Hammersmith and others on housing waiting lists, housing needs and adult social care? We all know it's the poorest people who suffer when this strategy is followed.
That's simply not fair, because actually you're looking at what we've done. We've in fact taken our recycling service back in-house.
And are you going to keep it after the election?
We will, yes. We've been very pragmatic about it. We've taken it in and we aim to run an efficient service, merging a privatised service with our own. And that will work and save money in the next cycle. You say...
That's a mask of all the other privatisation you've done.
Well, no, but you haven't looked at what we've actually done. I mean, yes, we've outsourced some, but there's some 8% of the council's activity. That's all. That's all. You're believing the hype that comes from those people at that meeting.
I mean, those people, they're residents of your borough. You should be more respectful.
The people in May
were occupied and disrupted a council meeting.
Let's go. The people in May will decide when they vote. Of course, Richard Cornelius, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.